okay, this review potentially might make some people mad, but here we go. So for a change, I'm doing this one off the cuff. I've got some notes. I normally sit down and actually write out these reviews, think about what I want to say, and deliver a decent, well-scripted review for you guys. But this one, I'm trying something different. Bear with me. So the synopsis for this one reads, at a party in 1813, the Doctor's life is about to be changed by a bounty hunter. So I would take that as some heavy revealing news to the Doctor, or something huge that's going to actually be life-changing to the Doctor's life. So that's exciting. Not. So the cold open to this episode is the most Doctor Who cold open that I have actually had in years from Doctor Who. Introduced us to the villain of the story, showed us the death, left us with a little bit of a cliffhanger, going into the title sequence. That part was fabulous. I really, really liked the intro to this episode. It was great. So this episode, Rogue, was written by Kate Herron and Bryony Redman. I've set expectations at the start of this that this is going to be a really bad review, but as a standalone episode, it was a good episode. It wasn't great, it wasn't fantastic, but it wasn't terrible either. I did find this really weird though, the fact that we were introduced to this episode after the title sequence had rolled, and we didn't actually get to see the Doctor and Ruby land, which was quite interesting actually. Like, it literally just get into the story, no need for the TARDIS, no need for landing, none of that stuff. It was just into the story. Doctor and Ruby's already there, they're established characters, they've established friends with the Duchess apparently. So that was really nice. It was different. It added a nice twist to the story. And then we get Ruby's great line that we'd already seen in the trailer, "Oh my Bridgerton." Of course, this is in reference to the actual show Bridgerton, and it's said more than once throughout this episode as well. And I must add, the Doctor and Ruby look fantastic in this episode. I just really wish that we still had that outfit from the end of the last episode on the Doctor, because that outfit was just fabulous. Honestly, the Doctor looked fantastic in that outfit. It won't be the first time that the Doctor's dressed up to blend into the surroundings, and it probably, looking at it from this last season, is not going to be the last. The opening scenes are nice and ordinary. It takes you from a really, really straight cliffhangery cold open to very Bridgerton. I've got to say, it is very Bridgerton, and it's dancing and people talking. But we do get to have a part here where it's established that Rubes does have some gadget earrings, and this is where she starts getting feedback, and it kind of leads us into the sci-fi fantasy part of the show. This part was fine. The pacing and stuff like that into the episode was fine. I'd say the first 17 minutes was good pacing, and then things just started to really ramp up and speed up because we were running out of time. As I said in my last review, I do feel like we're going to need to start having like hour-long episodes for these stories, because it seems like they're trying to tell bigger and better stories, but they're still limiting themselves to that 45-minute window. And it's just not working because everything's having to get rushed at the end of the story, and it is apparent that rush is there. Like, you just feel like everything's in an upheaval, and then it's fixed. Like, it just ruins the overall experience of the story. So we get to a part eventually where Ruby goes with the Duchess, and the Doctor spots Rogue after a scan with the red sonic pebble. I really like the fact that this sonic screwdriver is blue and red. Like, there's two of them, but mostly what was seen is the red one. But yeah, I still don't hate it. It's not the worst sonic screwdriver ever. Ruby gets introduced to the gentleman who we know is no gentleman from the cold open, because this one was took over by one of these bird creatures. I can't even remember the name of them. That's how memorable these villains were. The bird creatures, one of them took over one of the main guys at the start of the episode. Ruby ends up with him, and this leads us into false pretenses, but she gets her own up because she gives Lord Stilton, that's what she calls him, she gives him a hard time and walks away. And this is where she heads to the portrait of Sue Twist. So we've got Susan Twist. She shows up in a portrait. Literally the only thing in this full episode that is relevant to the overarching point. But then we get a scene between Rogue and the Doctor that I don't think a lot of people will actually love this scene, but I thought it was brilliant. The Doctor flirting with Rogue is something that the Doctor used to do with Captain Jack back in the day of Series 1. So it's just a little bit of a hint and a nod to kind of that situation. But whilst they're away on their walk, they find the Duchess murdered, and then this scene perfectly sets up that Rogue and the Doctor don't trust each other initially. We then get a conversation between the bird Duchess, because that's what happened. The Duchess was murdered. So she was turned into one of these bird people, and the bird Stilton dude, and we find out that the bird Duchess wants Ruby as her next skin. So she wants to cosplay Ruby next. During this scene, it cuts to the Doctor being trapped with Rogue and Rogue's spaceship, and I really, really liked this scene because the Doctor goes all Scottish, and it really, really gave me Missy and Death in Heaven vibes. Like, it was quite funny, and it really, really was quite reminiscent of Missy. This ship scene between Rogue and the Doctor is just brilliant. It was a bit slow-paced for a cameo scene, but it was good. I mean, it had all the Doctor's faces show up again. We've had that before. It's something that reoccurs every once in a while in Doctor Who. But it was good. The fact that the Doctor has to prove his worth this time, rather than just being the smartest person in the room, that's a nice little twist, because that's not something that we normally get. After a few old faces and a conversation, Rogue eventually decides to let the Doctor go. They move from Rogue's spaceship into the Doctor's Tardis, and after a few Doctor/Tardis light episodes, it's actually really, really nice to be able to get into the Tardis again. And Rogue's reaction to the inside is great. Like, honestly, it's a different reaction from what most companions would have initially. Rogue finds it fascinating and clean. Funnily enough, he finds it clean. It seems like such a waste for them to build this new TARDIS, and we've barely seen it. Like, if you literally think of most majority of the season, we've hardly been in the TARDIS, and it's such a nice room to film in. I wish we had more time inside it. I did pick up on the fact that the Doctor mentions cosplay, but cosplay should be something that technically isn't known to the characters. In fact, Bridgerton itself shouldn't be known to the characters, so this would be another kind of wall break, another fourth wall break of some sort, unless that's RTD's shift in trying to bring Doctor Who into our actual universe. It very, very well could be, because that means that we could have crossovers and stuff like that happen in our universe as well. But I don't know how that happens when it comes to like Star Trek and stuff, unless RTD's just trying to make Doctor Who every universe. Like, the Whoniverse is within every universe, which is complicated, but I mean, it's possible. Another thing that I wasn't too happy about was the cosplaying aliens from outer space. I don't know how I feel about that one. I mean, don't get me wrong, this specific bird man is beautiful. Like, I absolutely love the look of this costume. The bird just looks, like, the bird prosthetics just look phenomenal. So we get towards the end of the episode, and one of the birds turn out to be the woman that she's been sitting chatting to all this time. Ruby's been away with her more or less the full episode, and then this woman just turns into a bird and wants to cosplay Ruby. So she grabs Ruby's arm, and then the scene cuts away. We see a flash, the way that the birds would change into the person. So to us, Ruby's dead. We get a flashback to Carla and the Doctor promising to keep Ruby safe. This nearly had me crying. I was really nearly in tears because I genuinely thought Ruby was gone for a second. But it was the conversation between the Doctor and Carla that kind of got the tears working towards my tear ducts. It was quite a touching scene between the Doctor and Carla. It was a nice scene. But obviously every time the Doctor promises that he's going to keep someone safe to their mother, it's very unlikely the Doctor keeps that companion safe. But this time, it turned out that Ruby was actually safe, well, until the Doctor locked her in the dimension trap triangle thing and realised that there's no way to stop it and Ruby's going to get sent to a different dimension. That part scared me because I genuinely thought Ruby was gone, but then I remembered that the next episode is called The Legend of Ruby Sunday, so immediately I remembered, there's no immediate danger to Ruby. Because she needs to be there for the next episode. So, yeah. The Doctor was crying again in this episode. Granted, this time it was warranted, but I feel like it's going to become a redundant thing if they do this in every single episode for the upcoming season, because, like, I didn't feel as much emotion towards the Doctor crying this time because I've seen him cry in the previous 6 episodes. Every single episode, the Doctor sheds a tear. And I feel like this version of the Doctor is a more emotional version of the Doctor, but, like, there's a limit. And it's getting a little bit old now, so I'm hoping there's no more tears for the last 2 episodes. So Rogue eventually saves Ruby after him and the Doctor share a kiss. Overall, this episode was okay. It was different. This episode was written really well, but it just felt so filler. There shouldn't be any fillers in an 8-part series of Doctor Who. In a 13-part series, like 13 episodes, fair enough. throws some fillers, some single standalone episodes. But when you're only going to be given us 8 45-minute episodes of Doctor Who, they best be the best of the best 8 episodes of Doctor Who. This episode literally has no real value or adding anything at all to Ruby's journey, the Doctor's journey, the overarching point of the story. Like, it has no reason to be there. It literally is just a filler episode. And minus having Susan Twist show up in a portrait, there would be no link to this episode to the rest of the story. This episode literally isn't going to affect the next 2 episodes either. Yeah, it felt a little bit redundant. It's not that I didn't enjoy it. It feels cheeky to give us a filler episode when they have basically half the amount of episodes that we get from Doctor Who. And in a normal series, you would probably have 8 episodes which are pure story driven, overall arcing stories, and then the rest would probably be fillers. So if you're going to have that, get rid of all the filler episodes and make the series relatable to every other part of the series. Like, don't just throw a portrait of Susan Twist and be like, oh, this is a major part of the story. The portrait of Susan Twist is barely even acknowledged. Ruby just asks who it is. The Duchess explains who the picture is of, and then it's kind of just forgotten. She doesn't even mention to the Doctor that she's seen Susan Twist again. It's just there because it needs to be there, because RTD said the picture needs to be there. Like, take that picture away. This episode literally has nothing to do with this series of Doctor Who. I don't get this episode. Like, what value does it add to the overall series? I'm looking forward to next week because we finally get to address Susan Twist, and I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to this final character of Susan Triad because I feel like she's going to be a meanie, and I'm looking forward to that. I feel like the Doctor needs someone like that to come in and put the Doctor in his place, because I feel like he's got a bit too much freedom, a bit too much carelessness. He's forgetting how dangerous it is travelling with the TARDIS and the Doctor and Ruby. Essentially, this Doctor's got that carefree attitude, and that's when things tend to go wrong for the Doctor. So having this character come in and potentially put the Doctor in his place might make season 2 a completely different journey for the Doctor. But no, it's not that I didn't enjoy this episode, it's just not one that I would probably go back and watch. The villains were irrelevant to the overall story, minus sending them to a different dimension. You could watch that episode as a standalone and it wouldn't affect the plot in any way. Yeah, usual stuff. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit subscribe. You can always join as a member of the channel now, that's an option. And you can also click this video to stay in the YouTube universe, which is always the best place to be.